So today I'm going to talk about certification. So first off, thank you for inviting me back to NUS. I studied at NUS many years ago and happy to be back. Number two, I must say I feel a bit underqualified to be standing among professors and PhDs to talk about food. All right. So if I can spend just 1 minute talking about the Singapore Environment Council. So Singapore Environment Council was founded in 1995. We are close to 30 years old. In addition to what the NGO would do typically in advocacy and education, we do certification. So we have two certification. One is the Singapore Green Label, which focuses on products. So one of the most common products we do is paper. And that's really because of, if you can remember, 10 years ago, we had an episode of haze. And one of the products that contributed to haze was paper. And I just came back from Indonesia yesterday when we visited a paper plantation and then we did an audit whether they had the right fire management practices. So that's a bit of what we do. And we have another certification which is focused on premises, like offices. We certify office to see whether they have the right practices in place. Right, so I just want to share that we came back from COP a couple of weeks ago, and there was also a discussion in addition to the formal negotiation that was happening on climate finance. There was also a focus on the impact of food on climate. And Nurul was there at COP, and she was part of the panel picture. And I would just want to say I'm very excited to continue this conversation today on food and climate. So I have a few questions. So I will start with what is greenwashing. I have three options here. I will not ask the question typically due to time concerns. I will not ask, but the answer is C. The answer is C. And it's really because I think a lot of airlines right now are actually being sued by a lot of courts on greenwashing, on labeling their flights to be climate friendly. And this is the definition of greenwashing. I will not go into details. So actually, greenwashing is not new. It started back in the 1980s by an American. He went for a holiday. There's a whole entire story about how he coined the word greenwashing. But I just want to highlight the importance of going for holidays to get inspiration. And so over the past many years, I think there was an increase of uptake of companies that wants to position themselves to be green. But if actually when you dig deeper, around 50% of them do not have the right credentials to be green. And there are many examples out here. I'll just highlight two in Singapore. So you might recognize the bottom one is a famous internet celebrity that in the advertisement claims that if you turn the aircon at 23 degrees, you'll save the earth. So that's one example. And this picture was taken at the National Day Parade, where they had this paper carton that had this claim to be environmentally friendly. I mean, there are many countries taking action on greenwashing, and EU is one of them. So in GIST, what EU is doing, it's going to not allow generic environmental terms. So terms such as environmentally friendly, natural, biodegradable, climate friendly will not be allowed. So in addition, any companies that want to make explicit environmental claims must show certain documentation, and only sustainable labels approved with approved certification scheme will be allowed. And that's why I talk about eco-labels. So in the world of eco-labels, if you go to the supermarket, you probably see a lot of different eco-labels. So in the world of eco-labels, the industry defined it in three types. So type 1 eco-labels are I would say the best in class. They are independently verified, and they cover the entire life cycle of the product. So these are the Singapore Green Label, which we manage, the EU Eco Label, and the different labels that exist out in the world. So that's type 1. Best in class, they cover a wide range of environmental attributes, and independently verified. Type 2 type 2. All right, self-declared environmental labels. So these are not verified by a third party. These are typically labels that a company produces and choose to put on their products. So the most common one is the recycling the chasing arrow. It means nothing, right? I mean, it does not mean that it's recyclable in Singapore. Companies sometimes just put that on. All right. And lastly, we have type 3. So type 3, it's environmental product declaration. So these are third-party verified, but most often they look at one single attribute. So for example, the most common example is the energy label we see on our fridge. So that only shows energy consumption, and they provide you with a figure to it. Another example is a carbon footprint. It provides you with the carbon. And on that point, at the Singapore Environment Council, we are actually thinking of coming out with a carbon label for some of our products. So currently we have just type 1, but we are thinking of coming out with a label next to our type 1 label that shows the carbon emissions. Just for info. All right, so just share a bit about, so we have been doing labeling for 30 years. I just want to share some of the feedback that we have, right? So number one, might not be surprising that when a consumer chooses the products, the cost and functionality matters. Most of the consumers do not place eco-labels as one of the key consideration in purchasing a product. Even when they choose eco-label as one of the top 3 considerations, they attribute it to the quality of the product, which is not sometimes the case. So sometimes they have this impression that when you have an eco-label, it's better in quality. Not the case. So that's one, and I must say that that's something that I believe also, that sometimes in communicating sustainability, the function is more important. The example I gave, it's a Tesla. I mean, most people who buy Tesla or electric vehicles are not green warriors. They buy it because they like the acceleration of the car, they like the design of the car. So I think that's very important, that when we design a product, the functionality matters. Number 2, the ease of understanding the label is important. So based on our survey, many consumers spend less than 10 seconds looking at eco-labels, if they even look at eco-labels. And hence, the eco-label need to be simple and straightforward, and hence, they actually like type 3 eco-labels that focus on one attribute and provides data on that one attribute. So that's important. And we see that there's an increased uptake if you could show a personal benefit. So for the energy label, you actually can see what is your energy savings, that if you were to buy this, what's your average energy savings in 1 year. And lack of public awareness, I think that's rather straightforward. So on that point, I just want to talk about food labels. So I think in general, food labels are quite nascent. It's not the area that we Singapore Environment Council have went into. But in general, I think they are similar to what we found with consumers. Consumers like carbon labels on food better, and especially carbon labels with color ratings. So in this case, you can see the ABCD ratings on the food. And they claim that they're willing to pay a small premium to it. But I would just want to say one point that I got a lot from the environmental groups, that like for example, WWF do not encourage carbon label. And it's really because focusing on carbon alone might neglect other environmental benefits. For example, water consumption or biodiversity. So for example, a fish might be lower in carbon, but it might not mean that it is source sustainability, right? So that's one big concern that a lot of industry have. All right. All right. I just want to touch a bit on what businesses are thinking. So I think in general, business value certifications from reputable organizations. But I think it's important to make it simple. I think a lot of businesses, when you talk to them about sustainability, their minds shut off. Because typically, when they think about sustainability, they think it's very expensive. They need to engage someone with 10 years of experience, and that costs them a lot of money. So I think the approach that we are taking, it must be something that is easily adoptable by companies. And the last point is really that the product space is actually very valuable. It's just a place where company sells its marketing, and among the many regulations that they need to meet in terms of nutrition values. This is my last slide. All right, so I just want to share, we haven't went public with this. One of the largest organization in Singapore actually reached out to us to green their procurement. And they want to start with catering, for example, what we had earlier. So we are actually developing a green catering certification for their organization. And we have referenced many international and local standards. We came out with a draft proposal. And one of the things, of course, is on the menu, on the food that they are getting. So I think we have included things like local produce, alternative proteins as part of the certification program. We're currently doing consultation. If you would like to be part of our consultation, do let us know. That's my last slide. Thank you.